Hello, my fellow Bereans. So I thought I'd go ahead and switch to the book of Obadiah. It's one where I don't have a lot of notes, but once again, I'm seeing where it links to other parts of the Bible, and I'm just realizing how much God puts everything in the Bible for a reason. And when we put the whole of the Bible together, you get so much more out of it than you thought possible. So you're going to see places here where I've linked to other parts in the Bible. And to me, this is just going to make it so exciting to come back to the book of Obadiah later and really dig into it. So I'm kind of excited about that. I'm kind of excited about just looking at the brief overview of each book of the Bible and seeing that there's so much more to learn and to discover. So let's go ahead and get started. And in case you're new to the channel, I have this old Journal the Word Bible, and it was just getting very filled with notes, depending on which book it was. Obadiah didn't have much, but I've had this goal to transfer my notes into another Bible and to organize them and to type up notes. And then also this idea of adding inserts has really become something that I love. And so as I come to each book, I'm trying to think, what might I need the next time I come to Obadiah to understand it? And before we look at that, I just want to say a huge thank you. There's an anonymous donor who decided to support the channel. So just a big thank you to you for supporting this channel and the ministry. I really appreciate it. So now let's go ahead and look at the inserts that I have for the book of Obadiah. And as with everything, they're completely free. Just send an email to BibleNoteTakingWithKatie@gmail.com and request the inserts for the book of Obadiah. And let's go ahead and get started. So the very first thing I put on here is this chart here. It shows a timeline and then some of the major kingdoms, some of the major events, what time period the major prophets were in, the minor prophets, and then the other prophets in Old Testament books is how they organized it. And here's Obadiah, so during this time period here. And I think why these are so important to me and why I try to add them to most of the books is because that used to be one of the things that held me back from reading the Old Testament, is I didn't know what was happening when. It was very confusing. And yes, I could add one chart to the whole Bible, but I feel like it's going to be more welcoming to myself if it's in every single book. But that is an option too, because I know that can be overwhelming for people to have too much in their Bibles. So you really have to feel it out what's right for you, and we're not all going to be the same. So right underneath that, I have another one. This is the same person made both of these, and this is showing a little map and the major events associated with Edom, because this book speaks against Edom. So this is helpful just to see where is Edom, and then some of the big events in the life of the nation of Edom. And here is another timeline of Obadiah. And Obadiah, they're thinking around 840, which is pretty similar to the timeline that's at the top. Now on this one, it's a very tiny map. What I do when I'm looking for maps is I just kind of bring up all the maps for each book. So all the maps for the book of Obadiah, and I just choose the one that I like better. This is on Word, so people can change things out, but for whatever reason, this is the one that I chose. And so it shows where Edom is. So it shows the kingdom of Judah, the kingdom of Israel, some of these other countries, the Philistine nation. And then over here we have an Obadiah, the content outline. And this is from the John MacArthur Bible commentary. And here's one on who is Obadiah. His name means servant of the Lord. And I won't read all this because I know you can just grab it from me. And then the last thing that I decided to add to this is this one here. I was just really liking the looks of this. This is what caught my eye because it has us comparing the verses in Obadiah with the verses from Jeremiah 49. And I don't think I ever would have noticed that on my own. So I think that's cool to have that in here. And I might decide to notate it next to these verses, have it referenced back to each other. I haven't done that yet. That will probably be something that I'll do. So this is going to be an aid to me at that time. And then this is just some other information about it. So here at the top, I mentioned this before. In my other Bible, I was writing like who the author was and historical information right at the top here. But because I'm now adding inserts, that area is blank. So here in Obadiah verse 3, it says, "The pride of thine heart hath deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rocks, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground?" So this word pride is Zadon, and something that I'm noticing that I forgot to write. I normally write the Strong's number here, and I just forgot it, so I'll go back and add that later. But this is something I've been tracking, is the word presumptuous sins, and that's from Psalm 19:13. So it says, keep back thy servant also from presumptuous sins. Let them not have dominion over me. Then shall I be upright, and I shall be innocent from the great transgression. And when I read this psalm, I was just really struck by that was something that King David was very concerned about. So I started tracking the meanings of that. So I truly find this amazing. I was editing the video and I got to this part, and it says, the pride of thine heart hath deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? Verse 4, though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord. Now every time I read this, I'm reminded of Satan. And again, I just find it so powerful how God has one message. And it also points to the fact that Satan has this bent of evil, and like Christ said, we can take after Satan or God. We can choose who our Father is. And Christ had pointed to the Pharisees and said, you were like your father, the devil. And so we can be one of two ways. And so here we're seeing these characteristics of Satan. And in case you haven't seen this before, I'm going to show you these places. And I've added that in my Bible, but I haven't gone to those places and notated. So this is just to show you. But remember, this is just me moving my notes over, and things strike me and I add them, but this isn't like this is the completed study. So the first spot we're going to look at is Isaiah 14 verses 12 through 15. So it says, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground? So there's that part, which didst weaken the nations. For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. So here when we see this mount of the congregation in the sides of the north, this is the throne that Satan wants. And if you look at the sanctuary, that's the table of showbread is where that's set up in the sides of the north. And that represents the people of God. So just a little something to think about. So here in Isaiah 14 verses 14 and 15, I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Verse 15, yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. So here Satan he wants to ascend, and we see that back in Obadiah verse 3, wants the habitation high, though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, God is going to bring thee down. Set thy nest among the stars. So this is that same language, that same sin, that presumptuous sin. It really deceives us, and we need to be protected against that. So now we can look at Ezekiel 28 verse 17. Just in case you're new to this is a lamentation. This is Ezekiel 28 verse 12. Lamentation upon the king of Tyrus, and it's talking all about it, and you think, well, maybe he's just talking about an earthly king, but then it says, thou hast been in Eden in the garden of God. This is really God saying the power behind Tyrus, the king of Tyrus, is Satan, because no mere mortal would be in Eden in the garden of God. It says that he was the anointed cherub that covers, and if you look in Exodus, the anointed cherub that covers, this was over the Ark of the Covenant. There was that mercy seat with two anointed cherubs that cover. So that's back in Exodus. But anyways, we see the end of Satan. In verse 17, it says, thine heart was lifted up because of thy beauty. Thou hast corrupted thy wisdom by reason of thy brightness. So here we see that Satan is just overcome by his own beauty. That's the cause of the fall. And God says, I will cast thee to the ground. I will lay thee before kings that they may behold thee. This whole thing about Satan, this cause of the great controversy, this is something that atheists, people struggle with. Why is there sin? Why was there a fall? Even a lot of us believers can struggle with that. I know that I did for years. I became a Christian back in 1996 and nobody had showed me this. So that's going to be something that's added to the Travel Witnessing Bible because it is such a common question and it goes further than this. This is all I'm going to share at this time, but just know there's more to this and it's beautiful when you see all of it, but we're just going to stop here for now. So that's what I've notated in my Bible. And it's really because when I read this, I was instantly thinking of Satan, how his heart was lifted up and he's cut down to the ground. Not only is there a fall from heaven, but there is going to be an eventual fall at the end with the Battle of Armageddon, all of that. So often I get confused, and I know it's in Isaiah, it's in Ezekiel, which one was which. So that's why I have this noted here. So the other thing that I'm tracking is verse 9. And thy mighty men, O Teman, shall be dismayed to the end that every one of the mount of Esau may be cut off by slaughter. So in that, the word mount is one that I'm tracking because that comes up in the book of Revelation. So there are mountains that are thrown into the sea. And so I'm actually trying to have as many notes as possible, not in the book of Revelation because there's so many other types of notes. So anytime I see the word mount, I'm referencing to myself to Psalm 48 verses 1 and 2. I just don't have that prepared yet. So yes, there could be a mountain of Esau, but the word mount tends to mean that headquarters. God also uses that term for himself, but it's also for the enemies of God. So when you see the word mount or mountain, a lot of times that means that centralized power, their headquarters, their city, their government. That's that mount. But I just don't have it prepared to show you yet. But that's why I'm tracking it. Because when you see words throughout the Bible all together, how they're used in various places in the Bible, you get a feel for what it means. And then it makes Revelation become clearer. So the other thing we have is Esau or Edom. That we see that in Genesis 36:1. And Teman is one of those descendants of Esau. And we see that in Genesis 36 verses 10 through 11. So there was a creation of a community based on Teman. But again, I don't have that area ready in my Bible to show you. But just something you can look at those references yourself and see what you think. It's very exciting to me the way it all connects. And so if you notice, something that I'm doing is collecting information about areas and history of areas from the Bible itself. And then also all these symbols. That's something I enjoy doing. So here in verse 15, we see Day of the Lord. And in my color coding system, I do it with an underline of orange, an underline of red, box it in, and yellow. The Day of the Lord is near upon all the heathen. This is a time of consequences for sin and all of that. So that's why I notate it that way, because orange is for sin or for consequences, red is for God, and then yellow is for prophecy. So that's why I notate it that way. Then verse 16, for as ye have drunk upon my holy mountain, so shall all the heathen drink continually. Yea, they shall drink, and they shall swallow down, and they shall be as though they had not been. So the wicked, there is going to be that final end. But upon Mount Zion shall be deliverance, and there shall be holiness, and the house of Jacob shall possess their possessions. Oh, and it keeps going. And the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble. So I'm going to stop there, but this is going to be so exciting to come back to later and see more of. So we have that mountain. We're going to link back to Psalm 48 verses 1 through 2. Zion, that's a big symbol. The fire, everything is coming to an end. The sin and all of it is coming to an end. So here in verse 19 it says, and they of the south shall possess the mount of Esau. It's going to be completely taken over. And then verse 21, and savers shall come up on Mount Zion to judge the mount of Esau, and the kingdom shall be the Lord's. So not just about Obadiah, but God's constantly reminding us of this end of sin. So just a beautiful promise by God. Those are everything that I have for Obadiah. It's ready for me to study in more detail. And I just find it very exciting seeing all these links to other parts of the Bible. And it's going to give us clarity when we're reading the book of Revelation. And really, whenever we read anything in the Bible, knowing that the mountain, it can mean a literal mountain, but it can also mean a headquarters, a government systems. All right, until next time, be well and God bless.